It's going to make the hacker's life more miserable to try to hack into a personal account with another form of authentication.
Welcome back to Tech4UsAll, everyone. We're the podcast that makes technology simple and approachable. Whether you're tech adverse, anxious, just hesitant to embrace it, we're here to show you how technology isn't as daunting as it seems. Every episode, we unpack everyday technologies that you use all the time in your life with experts from around the world breaking it all down in plain English to help you feel confident and in control. I'm your host, Scott Saldinger, and I look forward to introducing you to great guests every week, and today is no different. Today we have Faisal Esaadi, a senior security, compliance, and identity specialist from Microsoft, and we're going to talk about multi-factor authentication, or sometimes you hear MFA or 2FA. We're going to kind of deep dive into that a little bit on the user side and why you should become comfortable and make it your ally. So, Faisal, welcome.
Scott, I appreciate being here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
First thing, let's kind of dive into your technology background and get an understanding of what led you into security, client, compliance, and identity. Tell me something about that.
Of course. So, it's funny. It kind of fell in my lap. So, throughout the years, I was an IT pro, and that started with gaming, which most of us transition into, right? So we go from like building computers, gaming, to transitioning to a career in tech. So, long story short, I worked at numerous call centers for quite some time before becoming a mobile device management specialist for a banking company called Santander. And that's when I started to learn about security through protecting mobile devices and protecting data on mobile devices. And then one day I got a call. It was Microsoft. I interviewed and I got in, and I started out as a support escalation engineer at Microsoft back in 2016. And after that, I became a pre-sales engineer focusing on selling, not so much selling, but showing customers the power of security through Microsoft solutions. So, Scott, to be very honest with you, again, it kind of fell in my lap. And when it fell in my lap, I gained a lot of interest. And I just started to go crazy with learning, building labs, and my career transitioned eventually into where I am at now, which is a cloud solutions architect, where I help customers envision a game plan of deployment around security solutions that Microsoft has to offer.
That's a great trajectory. I mean, I think a lot of us get to where we are in life accidentally.
Yeah.
You have that vision way out there, but there are a lot of twists and turns in between. Something that I'm always interested in because everyone has a perspective. Is what are your thoughts on why people tend to be technology adverse, resistant, untrusting? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Fear of change, I think, right? So I feel like people fear change. They're used to the typical things or the things that they do consistently in their lives, and they just fear change, right? They feel like if they change something or they add something additional into their lives, it's going to make things more complex. But that's, in tech, in most cases, whenever you add additional things onto something, you're securing it potentially, or you're making your life easier, for example, through AI. So my answer to you, my friend, is fear of change.
But aren't a lot of these things really meant to protect people and help them have a better experience? Isn't that the reason for the change in technology?
Absolutely, yes, but I feel like a lot of people don't understand that, right? So, you and I have been in tech for quite some time, hence no hair on my head, so that transition over to my beard, and soon that'll turn into gray hairs. But a lot of people, like for example, my family members, my mom, they really are just used to the flow of technology, social media, making phone calls, using WhatsApp to contact people overseas. So they're not really aware of what happens in between all of that. And I think it's our job to inform them, look, there's a chance of someone attempting to access your data. Here's how you can protect it through these simple steps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, multi-factor authentication is a perfect place to have a conversation about, while some people may feel that it's an inconvenience, I probably, authenticate a half a dozen to a dozen times a day, right? Um, whether I'm using a Microsoft suite or I'm getting into a financial account, or, using it to even protect, let's say, your social media accounts. Um, Explain a little bit about multi-factor, why, how it kind of evolved to where it is today, and really how it's much more of a protector than a detractor.
That's a great question. Yes. So originally, multi-factor authentication really started out in the corporate world with key fobs. So a basic key fob, I'm not going to get too technical, that would constantly change numbers, and that number would be a second form of a password, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I drive into work and I work as a IT administrator, or maybe I'm not in IT, maybe I'm in HR, whatever, right? And I use my typical username and password to authenticate or get into an application. Well, back in the heyday, multi-factor authentication was an additional key that I would put onto my keys physically, and then I would be prompted through that application to enter in those numbers so I can pass through. And that really was a second, or is rather a second form of authentication. So the way it evolved was really taking that and then giving end users in the corporate world options besides just the key fob, right? And I'm going to transition this discussion over to people that aren't techie, right? So now people have options. Again, we're still in the corporate world. So you can authenticate through a phone call. If I try to access an application right now, well, hey, Scott, Faisal, you're going to receive a phone call. We need that PIN code to make sure it's you. And the cool thing is all of that has now transitioned into the social media world, for example, and it has proven in the corporate world to be extremely successful, and now it's transitioned into the world of personal social media accounts, WhatsApp, so on and so forth.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it can come in many, shapes and sizes, right? We've graduated, and some people working in jobs, have never had to work with, authentication, right? But it can be we still use fobs. There are some people who use fobs still, but it can be getting a text with a number on it. It can be having a authenticator similar to the key fob, but on your device, right? And you're asked to give that information, but that slows down the process for some people, or they don't like to, oh, I have to go to another app, or maybe they get a text and they're not specifically sure what to do, because you can get an MFA spoof to you,
Yeah.
right? So what are some of the reasons why, embracing this as a consumer, whether it's a consumer of your social media and the apps on your phone, or in general, why is it so important for people to embrace this?
It's going to make the hacker's life more miserable to try to hack into a personal account with another form of authentication. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. So a few weeks ago, I was having dinner with my family, and my cousin is not familiar with multi-factor authentication whatsoever. He has a decent Instagram following, and all he does is use his password to log into it, right? And as you know, whenever you log into Facebook or Instagram, you don't have to keep logging in. So one time login and you're in, and you can start to look at your stuff and do whatever you got to do. We were having dinner, and he actually got an alert on his phone that someone logged into his Instagram. And he freaked out, and I was like, dude, they could be in your DMs, or they could potentially be trying to scam people out of money. So we immediately did two things. We went into Instagram and I showed him the power of multi-factor authentication. I told him, look, dude, if you have this enabled, then your phone would have alerted you and it would have told you that someone is attempting to authenticate into your account. Here's the one-time passcode. If it's you, go ahead and enter it. So in my mind, Scott, multi-factor authentication, it's going to make the life of a hacker or someone trying to access your information much more difficult, and that's the ultimate goal. We can't just rely on username, email, password ABC123. We want to be able to have another form of authentication to ensure that the account is as safe as possible.
Yeah, I mean, let's take it to another level. I mean, you and I probably see people all the time, on Facebook or other social stuff. My account's been hacked, right? And you hope that maybe they've, changed their password, reinforced that, and turned on multi-factor. But it even goes further than that. Um, let's talk about, your financial life, and logging in and out of your banking accounts online, right? You know, a lot of banks now will, or financial institutions will send you even a text to your phone. What happens though if you've got that with your bank and suddenly you get a text saying that here's your passcode to get in? What is that all about for someone who isn't aware? And then what does that mean to them, and what steps should they take?
So, answer one is luckily you have multi-factor authentication enabled. So, Scott has a bank account. Me being the hacker, I download the Chase app, the Bank of America app, whatever, and I use his email as the username, and I just start to blast passwords, right? Whatever, cats123, ABC123, guitars 78910, and then eventually, hey, I figured out the password. But luckily, Scott has multi-factor authentication enabled. So Scott got an alert on his phone because that multi-factor authentication piece is tied to his phone number. Luckily, Scott got the alert. So hey, okay, that's not me. I'm actually already logged into my app, and I didn't log into any other Bank of America applications anywhere else. So, to answer question 2, what Scott should do is, if Scott or if you receive an alert that someone attempted to log into your account and here's that one-time passcode, you don't give that passcode to anybody, and you need to immediately call that financial institution, like now, to make sure that your information is safe and secure. But again, luckily, Scott was smart enough to enable multi-factor authentication to where he was able to stop the experience from going head on. Because if Scott didn't have multi-factor authentication, right, then all I had to do as a hacker was just type in scott@scott.com as the username, right, for his email, whatever, and then guitars123 is his password. Boom, I'm in and I can see all his information.
And now you've given everyone my universal password.
Well, you
Now
better
I'm
have
gonna,
multi-factor authentication. Okay, good.
and I'm gonna have to, yeah, and I'm gonna have to go change. But I'm also gonna change my password when we're done with this. No, just kidding, everybody. Past phrases are a whole different topic that we're not going to discuss today. But I'm sure we'll get that on another episode of why
Sure.
using cat123 is really not appropriate.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about authentication kind of in general, because it goes another step. I have heard from people who are both technology diverse and they don't like the way that we necessarily do things these days. You call into, let's say, your bank, right? And you've got to give them your name, an account number, another password, another, some sort of other identification, a secret word, right? Aren't those also the same as multi-factor authentication? So some people may already be doing some of it unaware, but they should take that other step to embrace doing it physically.
Can't
True.
agree more. Can't agree more. And the cool thing is, as you know, now these institutions have a way to send you a passcode to verify if it's you, right? So my mom had to call the bank the other day, and instead of her giving all of her information, she gave, one or two pieces of important information, and then the representative said, "Hey, I'm going to text you a passcode to your phone. Can you please verify that passcode?" Boom, she verified it, and the representative was able to get into the account. So yes, again, like we both said, it's it's another way to make life difficult for a hacker to try to get into your accounts.
Yeah. And isn't isn't another reason to embrace this that at this point in our technology world, almost everyone's information has been exposed somewhere to somebody?
100%. Whenever you sign up for Facebook, whenever you sign up for Instagram, whenever you, hey, I'm in crypto, I enjoy crypto. Well, guess what? All of my stuff is in specific applications, so you better believe that I have numerous forms of passwords and ways to get into my stuff. 100%. Yeah. So I mean, all of our, like you just said, Scott, all of our information is it's there. It's in data. It's in the hands of corporations. How do you make sure that your information is secure going forward? And the answer again is multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, yeah, that and not reusing the same things twice. I mean, we have all been, I think, a victim of a hack at some point by a major corporation, and there's some other information out of the dark web that we're not aware of, whether it is social security numbers, bank accounts, addresses, whatever. It's out there, and if you continue to recycle and reuse all the same information over and over and over again, you're just making it easier for someone to take advantage of you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Great. Well, I think this has been really good to kind of, give everyone an idea because it's important to embrace these things at any age or at any technological feeling about technology. Um, you may think it's a hindrance, but this is such a great helper
Big time.
to your life, to your ability to maintain control so that you're not a victim of some hacker.
Can't agree more. Yep.
Yeah. So, well, great. Well, hey, this has been a great topic. I appreciate you kind of enlightening people a little bit to what they should be doing. I hope everyone out there goes and does this.
Same.
Use multi-factor. Embrace it. It is there to help you, not give you a horrible experience. And it may be a little inconvenient, but for that little bit of inconvenience, imagine how much inconvenience you're really avoiding.
Yep, and all you have to do, folks, is just look up. You can go on Google. I'm sure many of you know how to get on Google, right? Look up multi-factor authentication, and then you can type in the service that you want to use it on, right? So you can type in MFA, Mary, Faisal, Abraham, MFA, Facebook, MFA, Instagram, and you'll get step-by-step instructions on how to enable those services.
Yeah, and that's because all of these services really would like you to do it and make it easy for you to accomplish this. So, Faisal, I appreciate you for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. Everybody, we'll be back next week with another great topic for you. And in the meantime, hopefully by the next time I see you, you'll have started using MFA. So, thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Take care.
Thank you.